Hi, Teresa here from Teresa's Crafty Cabana. Today I wanted to show you how you can use the Gelli Plate to make some craft items. So I am a card maker. I also like making envelopes. So for any of the card makers out there, this might be something for you to try. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking my distress inks, which is a common ink that is used in card making, and I'm just using them on my gel plate. And typically I could do this also on just a craft mat. The results are a little bit different by doing it on the Gelli Plate. I'm just experimenting here. I'm using 3 colors of Distress Oxide. I'm using the Fossilized Amber, the Rusty Hinge, and the Seedless Preserves. My first go at this, I just put the Distress inks onto the gel plate, rolled it out with my brayer, and pulled that with my cards. I'm actually using watercolor, Canson watercolor paper for this. That way it can hold all of the water that I'm putting onto these card panels. And for this second one that I pulled, I did not add any more water. I just kind of pulled up what color and water was left on the plate. Then I rolled out a little bit more color on this one, added some water to the ink, and I put that on top of a panel I had done already. Here I'm just trying to layer up the ink colors and just kind of build interest on these little background pieces. And as I'm going along, I'm trying to decide which panel I'm going to use for the project I'm working on today. I ended up going with this one that's at an angle. So I had the colors, the Seedless Preserves, the Rusty Hinge, and the Fossilized Amber kind of like at an angle on the plate. And I really liked how that looked. This, I think it's this last one that ended up having the most color and was the most vibrant. And for the project that I was going for, that was the one that looked the most like what I was going for. So I'd say play around with this technique. It does take a little bit of practice, pressing lightly or pressing a little more hard. I would put just one color down just to layer up usually my darker color, the Seedless Preserves. Sprinkle it with water, lightly touch it. The idea here is if you smush it down, it's just going to smush and blend, but if you want little dots like this, then you just press down kind of lightly just to pick up the dots. So here's my 4 variations of my little backgrounds that I just created. And this last background, the most vibrant one, this is the one I'm going to make my card with today. So I'm using this butterfly stamp. I'll link below the stamp and the supplies that I used. If you follow my channel, you know that I've been using Perfect Pearls a lot on my Gelli Plate. So for this particular one, I did not actually use the pearls on the plate. I decided to paint in the butterflies with the Perfect Pearls by using water. And this makes them kind of like liquid metallic paints. So it's pretty cool, the effect that this gives to this card base. And I used a lot of the colors that went in with this coloring, the purples, the pink, the yellows, the oranges, and they added a lot of depth to the butterflies. So whatever color you end up using for your background, if you go with more blues and greens, you may just want to use different colors of the pearls, or if you have any kind of mica powders would work for this. I'm not going into too much detail about how I colored these, just to show you, I used a variety of colors on almost all of the butterflies. That way it wasn't just one color on the butterfly. And I tried to work around so that each of the colors were kind of dispersed throughout the entire image. And then for my sentiment, I decided to use a hot foil plate. This says Just a Note. And I'm just cutting my foil piece to about the size of my sentiment here. I've already got my plate warming up. My ready light is on. So now it's time to build the sandwich. If you've used this before, then this is nothing new for you. Just always make sure the shiny side is actually facing the plate. And the color foil that I'm using is kind of like a pewter, but it's like a deeper silver color, not like the bright silver. So I'm making my sandwich here. I pressed my timer button. I'm just speeding up the time, and I'm not gonna show me rolling it out, but I came back and had run it through my die cut machine. And now it's time to reveal what the sentiment looks like. I just love the hot foiling. It looks so professional. So for that panel that I had made with the butterflies, I cut it in half to create two 3" by 4.5" panels. And then I cut my card base down from 8.5 by 11 to 4.5 by 8.5. And then I scored in 3 inches on each side to make my trifold card base. Then I'm just going to glue both of these butterfly panels to the 3" side of this card base. As I was putting this second card panel piece on, I wanted to make sure my butterflies were facing the correct way as the other side, so that when they met together, they were actually going to be pieced as a whole. Now, when you fold this flat, the butterflies overlap, so you don't see them matching up when you fold it flat. But when you put it at an angle, like when you're displaying it, and I'll show that at the end, the butterflies do kind of line up. So to put my sentiment on, I'm kind of lining up how far in I want it on this one card panel, or the side card panel. And I'm just using some foam tape to give it a little bit of dimension. I was going to go with a centered sentiment in the center, but I decided I wanted to do an offset on this one. So I positioned it in the lower third of the card base instead, so more of the butterflies would show. So here's what it's looking like so far. I do need to put something on the inside. It's looking a little bare. So to dress up the inside, I'm just going to use my Tim Holtz stamping tool to help me line up my butterflies with where I want it on the card base bottom here. I'm going to use some washi tape just so that my card base doesn't go anywhere. You could use the magnets that come with the platform, but I always find that they stand up a little too tall, so I like to use the tape on this. And again, I'm just staying with the same color theme throughout this entire video. I don't think, other than the black, I didn't use any other of my distress inks, so everything matches and goes well together. So I'm using the distress inks over the one corner of the butterflies, and I have my brayer that still has some leftover ink from when I was rolling it out on the Gelli Plate. So I just decided to roll it out onto my stamp to blend those colors a little bit. The thing I like about using the stamping platform, especially for this technique, is they hardly ever turn out great the first time, the stamping. So then I can see where I didn't press hard enough, and I can go back into those areas and press a little bit harder. Occasionally I will also add more ink, but for this particular side, I only had added ink the one time and then just kept pressing down until all the ink was transferred. On the opposite side, I am going to add some distress ink blending, just in the same colors, but this time I'm going to kind of make like a rainbow with the purple on the outside, the orange kind of in the inside, and the yellow in the middle. Over on the other side, I did want to do some ink blending over these butterflies as well. I'm doing the purple on the top and the bottom, the orange just under the purple, and then the center will be the yellow. I have this stamp set from Dollar Tree. I love this little sentiment here, sending a card instead of a text. So I'm going to use that on my left side of the inside card base. I'm going to use this one with the Seedless Preserves, the darkest color. When you do stamp words with the distress inks, the oxide inks, I find I have to stamp them 2 to 3 times. In this case, I did 3 times. Next, I pulled out my 8x10 gel plate, and I'm layering on the same colors, the yellow, the orange, and the purple. And for this one, I'm going to be using it to make my envelope. Once all the color is down, I'm just using my roller to roll out the color and blend them a little bit. Not too much though. I want to still see the difference in the colors. I made this little texture piece with an embossing folder. I just embossed it on both sides of this piece of paper. It's just a 110-pound cardstock. This get bonus as a separate background as well. Since my design didn't go all the way across, I just picked it up and added a little more texture to the 2 sides there. This little tool that I'm using is something that I made. I call it a Gelli Plate placement tool. And it just helps me line up my paper. Some people like to put a piece of paper underneath and line it up, matching it with the paper. I just always had a hard time making mine line up that way. That's why I created this tool. This is the one side, and since I still had ink left on the plate, I decided to flip it over and take an impression of what was left Of course, it'll be a lot lighter, but that will be the inside of my envelope. To make my envelope, I laid my card in the center of the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I folded the top down and the bottom up, just lining them up and pressing down. You can use a bone folder as well for your folds. Then I try to line it as close to the center as I can and just fold in the sides. Basically, you're almost like making a package around your card here. It's just a nice and simple envelope, and you don't need really any envelope tool for this one. Then I cut out all 4 corners, but I don't cut them out straight. I cut them in at an angle from both sides. So a little bit of an angle on the short side and a little bit of an angle from the long side. And I do that to all 4 corners. Then I wanted to add a little decorative detail to the top flap. I ended up using the yellow side as the top flap because it had a bigger white space, and that was going to be just the right size to hold this little decorative edge. So I'm just running that through my die cut machine. And then on the sides and on the bottom, I cut off any of that white leftover paper, and that way it was all just the design. So with those pieces cut away, I'm ready to glue my envelope together. Just gluing that purple side. The way I do this part is I just kind of see how high up the panel goes to the side panels, and I do a little bit of glue on the panels and a little bit of glue on the piece, this panel that goes up above. I'm just kind of hoping that I don't glue my piece to the inside. That's the only thing you have to be careful for. And now we have an envelope, and the card fits in this envelope perfectly. And the envelope matches the card because I use the same colors, and it has the flowers, but the butterflies are the card base. So for this next part, I wanted to show you how easily this goes into the envelope because it was custom made for this card. Showing you the inside one more time here. You can see how shiny those butterflies are in the light. Don't even have to struggle to get it in. Now I am actually giving this card away to someone, so I went ahead and I filled out my card, and I showed you this is what the card looks like when you have the 2 panels kind of butted up to each other. You can kind of see where they almost create a full butterfly there in the center. So I'm done writing inside my card, and I'm ready to seal it up. gonna use a wax seal. I put a little bit of copper flakes inside, and that's what that shiny orange color is. I'm using a bee seal, wax seal. This one's really pretty. It has like a little bumblebee in the middle with the wings sticking out, and then a little decorative detail around it. To make it stand out, because it doesn't stand out too great right now, I'm just going to use the gold pen that came in my kit. I ended up buying a kit for my wax seals because it had everything that I needed, including the little tea lights. I'll link the kit that I got on Amazon below if you're new to wax seals and you're interested. So I'm going to show you how I send out a card like this. I don't like to ruin my card by sending it out in the mail without protection, because these are distress inks, and if you've worked with distress inks, you know that as soon as water touches them, it's kind of ruined. So to protect my card base, I have these plastic sleeves that I use. I'll link these below as well. I just got them from Amazon, and they're the perfect size to hold all my cards that I send out this way. And once you seal it this way here, it just has this little sticky piece, and that's really all I do to seal it. I did end up adding a washi tape to this later on, but to put my address on this, the return address I put on the back side, and I use a mailing label sticker just right on the back here. And then on the front side, where the envelope is going to be addressed to who I'm sending it to, I will put another mailing sticker. And then of course I just use my stamps right on the top right, just like you normally would. I do two regular stamps for this type of an envelope because it's got a little more bulk to it with the wax seal, and it may not be able to go through a regular processor, so I do put a little extra stamp and postage on there. And that concludes my video with this how to use your Gelli Plate and card making together. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and give it a try. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next video. Happy crafting.